Buddy Zakaria appeared on This Week with George Stephanopoulos to discuss his new book, Age of Revolutions. And one of the things that I got out of the interview is something very profound. He points out that this MAGA movement, which is sort of a cultural movement, an anti-woman movement, an anti-liberal movement, it's not just here in the United States, but throughout the world, including Russia, Iran, even Israel, and other places. Now, I think I agree with what he's saying, but I think it's more profound. I haven't read his book to see if he goes into more detail about this, but I want you to first listen to what he has to say about these cultural involvements that's occurring that have us all in a tizzy about what's going to happen throughout the world, and then we'll take it, because it seems like he's saying the entire world right now is because of the movement to liberalize women, the movement to liberalize quite a bit has messed with the people in power who are now trying to claw back. But I think he gives too much credit to the United States as being the one who is going to save that from occurring. Let's listen to this and we'll take it on the other side.
And this is all against the backdrop of what you call one of the most revolutionary ages in history. So where does this fit in?
So in a sense, if you think about what Iran is doing, what Russia is doing in Ukraine, what China is doing, all of these countries are deeply uncomfortable with the Western-led, American-led liberal world order. And a lot of, for them, this is kind of an existential threat. So they're pushing back in ways that they find they can. The Russians do it in Ukraine. The Chinese are trying to do it with regard to Taiwan. And for Iran, the strategy has always been to try to, in some way or the other, use its array of proxies to push back against what it sees as an American-led Middle Eastern order. So there's almost a kind of cultural dimension to this. They don't just fear American power. They fear American values.
You talk about culture. We're seeing that here at home as well. And you're saying that former President Trump and his candidacy is a culmination, not the cause of an identity politics revolution. Explain what you mean by that.
So I think for the last 30 or 40 years in this country, we have had an identity revolution on a scale most people don't realize. I mean, think about the role of women. For thousands of years, women were second-class citizens. And thank God, that has changed in the last 30 or 40 years. Blacks, Hispanics, gays, everyone is rising out of the shadows into the mainstream. That has unnerved a lot of people. That has unsettled a lot of people. And you're seeing a cultural reaction to it everywhere. By the way, Islamic fundamentalism is fundamentally obsessed with the idea of the role of women, put them back. If you look at Christian nationalism, similarly worried about the role of women. If you look at the ultra-Orthodox in Israel, so there's a very broad cultural reaction against it. Trump, I've always said this, Donald Trump is not a good businessman, but he's a good salesman. And he can sense, I think in that 2016 campaign, he could sense where the crowd was. And he realized the core issues were not, as they had been for Republicans for decades, economic issues. There were cultural issues.
So you say this is a global phenomenon. Can this global phenomenon be contained, this backlash?
It's up to the West to have confidence in itself, up to America to lead the West. Even Xi Jinping, by the way, has been giving speeches about how women have become too liberated. They need to go back into the kitchen and have more babies. The key challenges in Ukraine, probably even more than here. But, this is the big question for the future. Can the United States keep the West together, continue to believe in our values and push back? Because if we don't, those other forces are determined to unravel the Western-led liberal order, American power, and again, American values. What Putin and Xi and the Iranian mullahs fear is that Western liberal values are going to undermine their base of support. So for them, this is existential. They're going to fight. The question is, are we going to fight back?
I get what he's saying, but I think, as usual, he gives us here in the United States a bit too much credit. He talks about Iran. Again, most of us have learned to hate Iran, not noticing that the evil that we put on Iran for the things that it does we went into Iran and actually tried to do some evil on them by ripping them off with their oil. There's quite a bit there. The same can be said with certain things done throughout the world that we have done. So we shouldn't be on too much of a high horse that these guys are bad, we are good. These guys are just guys, we are just guys. We are rich, but we are rich because in order to remain rich, we did a lot of things to different countries overseas, not just in the past, but even as it stands currently. But we don't present the whole big picture. And when we have these other people fighting against us across the world, most Americans are completely ignorant to what we are doing to cause the gestation of what people are doing towards us. And until we have a full understanding of the world, a full understanding of what we've done, a full understanding of how we can be so rich, a full understanding of how we can have so much with so few people, we will probably get a better picture. Now, when it comes to things like gender and cultural issues, I mean, we have to remember a lot of these countries, including some of these Muslim countries that we think are so far behind or that we think are somehow, from a cultural standpoint, the way they treat their women, etc., we should have a little bit of humble pie and remember a lot of these countries have elected women as their leaders. Let's talk about India. Let's talk about Pakistan. Let's talk about England. Let's talk about several countries around the world. Argentina, Brazil have elected women, and we have yet to do that. We claim to be the bastion of liberty for women and everybody else. We have yet to do that. We just got our first black vice president recently. Costa Rica had one temporarily. We can keep talking about these issues. Colombia has one now. So it is important for us to be a bit more humble. I think the entire world would benefit from that, not only externally, but internally, as we are able to preach, not from a level of hypocrisy, but from what we're doing. MAGA will only survive if we continue to fool ourselves. And MAGA will continue around the world until there's some honesty in how we deal with cultural issues.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.